Caleb Rourke lived on a wide and lonely ranch far from any town. For many years he liked the silence. He liked the open land, the old wooden fences, and the soft sound of wind moving through the dry grass. After retiring from his long service life, he wanted nothing but peace. He fixed his barn, fed his animals, and slept early every night. Nothing ever changed. But one night, something did change. It started with a sound he had never heard before. It came from the north side of his ranch, a heavy, sharp noise like metal twisting and breaking. The ground shook under his boots. His horses cried out. Caleb stepped out of his small house and looked toward the dark horizon. A bright flash lit up the sky. Then another. It looked like something burning, falling fast. Caleb grabbed his old flashlight and his rifle and walked toward the sound. He did not hurry, but his heart beat faster than usual. He had lived alone too long to fear simple things. But this felt different. This felt wrong. As he reached the north fence line, he smelled something strange, burning metal mixed with sweet, unknown scent. Smoke drifted over the dry grass. The ground was warm. And then he saw it, a crashed transport. It was not human. Caleb had seen many ships during his service years, but never one shaped like this. It was long and curved like the shell of some giant insect with glowing lines across its surface. Sparks jumped from the broken engine. The air hummed with energy. Caleb stayed low and moved closer. Then he heard a voice. Not one voice, many. Soft, scared, whispering. He stopped behind a fallen fence post and watched as the side of the ship slowly opened. The door fell to the ground with a loud metallic thud. Smoke poured out, and from the smoke, figures stepped forward. 11, all of them women, all of them aliens. They walked unsteadily, some limping, some holding each other up. Their clothes were torn. Their eyes were wide with fear. Their skin was different shades, soft blues, pale golds, gentle purples. But nothing looked unnatural. They seemed tired, hurting alone. Caleb had seen aliens before in his younger days, but these women looked unlike any species he knew. Their faces were smooth with delicate lines. Their hair carried faint glowing streaks. Some had light markings on their arms like natural tattoos. One had fine scales on her neck that shimmered in the moonlight. When they noticed Caleb standing there, they all stopped at once. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the tallest woman stepped forward. She had gentle silver eyes and a calm voice that shook with exhaustion. "Human," she said, "please do not fear us." Caleb did not raise his rifle. "I'm not afraid," he answered. "But you shouldn't be here. This land is dangerous at night." The woman lowered herself onto her knees. The others slowly followed, kneeling on the dusty ground. "Please," she said again, "we beg for shelter. We have nowhere else to go." Caleb frowned. "Shelter? From what?" The woman hesitated. "From the ones who destroyed our home. They hunt us still." The word hunt made Caleb's grip tighten on his rifle. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. The woman placed a hand over her heart. "We are widows, the last of our people from the Serene Colony. Our husbands are dead. Our families are gone. We followed a signal, a message from long ago. It said a human here would show mercy." Caleb stared at them. 11 alien widows kneeling on his dusty ranch ground, asking him for help. It sounded like something from an old war story, not real life. But their shaking hands were real. Their tired eyes were real. Their fear was real. Caleb slowly lowered his rifle. "All right," he said. "Get up. You can come inside." The women looked at each other with relief. But as they began walking toward the ranch house with Caleb leading them, he noticed something in the distance. Small lights moving through the trees. Not stars. Not fireflies. Something. The widow's story. Caleb led the 11 alien widows into his small ranch house. It was not large, and it was not fancy, but it was safer now. The wooden floor creaked under their steps. The widows looked around with tired, curious eyes, touching things gently. Chairs, the old lamp, the blankets folded on a shelf. Everything here was strange to them, yet they seemed grateful for even the simplest comfort. Caleb brought them water first. They drank slowly, as if they had not tasted clean water in days. One widow with soft golden skin whispered, "Thank you," in a quiet voice that sounded almost musical. He heated soup on the stove. His hands moved fast, but his mind raced even faster. Who were these women really? What danger followed them? And what did they mean by a legend of a human who shows mercy? When the widows finished drinking, Caleb pulled out a wooden bench and sat down. "All right," he said. "I need to understand what happened to you. Start from the beginning." The tall widow with silver eyes, the one who had spoken at the crash, stepped forward. She lowered her head politely before she spoke. "My name is Sarai. I am the eldest among us. We belong to the serene colony on the planet Mylenus. It was a peaceful world, rich with forests and bright rivers. Our people lived quiet lives. We were not fighters." The other widows nodded, sadness passing over their faces. Sarai continued, "We had families, husbands. Some of us had children. But everything changed when the Vorn Dominion attacked." Caleb frowned. He knew the name. The Vorn were a ruthless empire known for taking resources and destroying those who resisted. "Our colony had no weapon strong enough to stop them," Sarai said. "Our husbands fought anyway. They bought us time. They told us to run. They did not survive." A few widows lowered their heads. One wiped tears from her glowing cheeks. Caleb felt a tightness in his chest. He had seen enough battles in his past to understand loss, but this was different. This was total destruction. "What does the Vorn want with you?" Caleb asked. Sarai's voice dropped to a whisper. "We carry something. Not in our hands, but in our minds. Information our husbands gave us before they died. Coordinates. Codes. Something the Vorn want." A widow with pale blue freckles added softly, "If the Vorn catch us, they will kill us all." Caleb leaned back slowly. This was worse than he thought. These women were not just refugees. They were targets. "So you came here," he said, "to my ranch. Why?" Sarai exchanged a glance with the others and answered, "Because of the legend. Long ago, a serene scout visited Earth. He wrote stories about humans, how some are cruel and some are kind, but one stood out. A human soldier who saved serene civilians during a war. The scout wrote that your kind never forgets a promise." She looked at Caleb with hopeful eyes. He wrote of a ranch in the quiet lands, a place where a human would show mercy again, if one day we needed it. Caleb stared at her. "You're telling me you crossed half the galaxy because of an old story?" "Yes," Sarai said simply. "We followed faith, and the coordinates the scout left behind." Caleb rubbed his forehead. He had not saved civilians in some old war. He had fought pirates, smugglers, and raiders, but never serene. And he had never heard of this legend. "It was not you," Sarai said, noticing his confusion, "but your species. Humans are known for strange kindness. We risked everything on that hope." Caleb looked away, unsure how to respond. He was just a retired man trying to live quietly. He was no hero. But these women believed in something, believed in him, or at least the idea of him. A sudden thump hit the wall of the house. The widows jumped. Caleb stood instantly, grabbing his rifle again. He moved to the window and peeled back the curtain. The night was dark outside, but he saw it clearly. A small drone, black, silent, hovering low near his barn. It scanned the area with a red beam. Sarai whispered, "The Vorn use drones like that. They search for life signs." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Then they found you." "No," Sarai said. "Not yet, but they are close." Caleb turned off the lights in the house. Darkness covered them. He motioned the widows to stay quiet and low. The drone drifted across the yard, its red light sliding over ground like a hunting eye. Caleb watched calmly. He had seen machines like this before. They searched in patterns. They listened for movement. The widows held their breath. After a long moment, the drone glided away, disappearing behind the barn. Caleb waited another minute, then finally spoke. "They know something fell here," he said. "They'll come back with more." Sarai bowed her head. "We are sorry. We brought danger to your home." Caleb shook his head. "Danger or not, you're here now. And I don't turn away people who need help. The widows looked up at him with surprise and hope. Caleb took a deep breath and made his choice. "You can stay," he said, "but if the Vorn come, we fight." Sarai's silver eyes shone. "Then we stay with honor. We do not run again." And for the first time that night, the ranch did not feel lonely anymore, learning to live together. The next morning, the ranch felt strangely alive. Caleb had lived there alone for many years, but now, when he stepped outside, he heard quiet voices, gentle footsteps, and soft laughter from the 11 alien widows. The sunlight touched their skin, making their natural colors glow softly. They stood near the barn, looking around with wide, curious eyes. Caleb walked over, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "All right," he said, trying to sound calm. "If you're staying here, you need to help. This ranch is big. There's work to do." Sarai nodded politely. "We will help with anything you ask." The widows seemed ready, almost eager, to do something useful. Caleb pointed to the old fences first. "Those rails need fixing. Storm mess 'em up." Two widows with light blue markings stepped forward. "We can fix wood," one said. "Our colony used wood for our homes, too." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Let's see." They followed him to the fence. The widows examined the broken rail, touched the grain, studied the nails, then shared a silent look. One lifted the rail easily and held it in place, while the other hammered a nail straight through with surprising strength. Caleb blinked. "Huh, you're stronger than you look." "We train with our husbands," one widow explained softly. "We learn how to build and how to fight." Caleb said nothing, but he felt respect growing in him. Nearby, the widow with golden skin was studying the ranch soil. She knelt and pressed her fingers into the dirt. "This ground is good," she said. "Dry but strong. It can grow food." Caleb stepped closer. "I tried planting last season. Didn't go well." The widow smiled gently. "Your seeds were too old, and you watered at the wrong time." Caleb crossed his arms, pretending to be annoyed, but he chuckled. "Well, teach me then." By noon, the ranch looked different. Widows carried tools, moved buckets, swept dust, and washed windows. They worked quietly and gracefully, moving like they had done these things all their lives. Caleb watched them with a strange feeling in his chest. Something warm, something he had not felt in many years. Maybe he didn't mind the company, but peace didn't last long. Just after lunch, while Caleb fixed the door hinge, the widow with small silver freckles approached him. She held something metal in her hands. "Caleb," she said nervously, "we found this behind the barn." It was a scanning device, small, black, and clearly not human-made. The surface still hummed with faint energy. Caleb's face hardened. "This wasn't here this morning." Sarai walked over. "It is Vorn tech," she said. "They leave these behind when they search an area. It records signs of movement." Caleb examined it carefully, "Which means they'll come back soon." The widows exchanged worried looks. Caleb took a long breath. "All right, we prepare. No panic. No shouting. You keep working like normal. Anyone watching will think everything is fine." The widows nodded. They trusted him. But when Caleb turned away, his hands shook. He had not planned for war again. He had wanted quiet days and slow mornings. Yet now he was protecting 11 strangers from an empire that destroyed worlds. He looked at them, tired but hopeful, determined to survive. He could not let anything happen to them. That evening, Caleb taught the widows simple ranch skills. How to feed the horses, how to clean the water trough, how to mix grain and check for rot. The widows listened carefully, repeating his instructions until they understood. One widow with dark purple skin tried to feed a horse, but the animal snorted and backed away. She lowered her head sadly. "It fears me." Caleb shook his head gently. "No, horses sense emotions. You're nervous, so he's nervous." He placed her hand on the horse's neck. "Breathe slow." She did. The horse relaxed. She smiled with quiet joy. By sunset, the ranch felt almost peaceful again. But peace ended the moment Caleb returned to the house and checked his old communication scanner, one he had kept locked in a metal box under his bed. The screen flashed red. "Unknown transmission detected." Coordinates, near your land. Caleb stared at the blinking light. Someone was mapping the area again. Not humans, not traitors. Vorn. He stepped outside quickly. Sarai stood near the porch, watching the sky. She noticed his tense expression. "They're close?" she asked. Caleb nodded. "They're scanning the region. They know something crashed. They're sweeping every valley." Sarai took a slow breath. "Then we must prepare more." Caleb looked at her carefully. "You and the others, can you defend yourselves?" Sarai hesitated, then answered honestly. "We can fight a little. Our husbands taught us small skills, but we are not warriors." "That's fine," Caleb said. "I am." The widows looked at him in silence, each one understanding the weight of his words. Caleb stood tall for the first time in years. "Tomorrow we start building defenses, quiet ones, traps, alarms, hidden shelters. The Vorn will come. When they do, we won't be helpless." Sarai bowed her head. "We trust you," Caleb roared. Caleb looked out across his land. The wide fields dark under the rising moon. He had lived alone for so long, but now he had something worth protecting again, something worth fighting for. The enemy moves closer. The next morning began with cold wind and a quiet sky. Caleb woke earlier than usual. His mind felt heavy, filled with thoughts of the Vorn scanners and the drone that had searched his land the night before. He stepped outside and looked across the fields. The wind pushed the tall grass back and forth, but something about it felt wrong. Too still, too alert. The widows were already awake. Some stood near the barn, some near the house, and some in the fields. They worked calmly, but their eyes kept scanning the horizon. There was fear hidden in their movements. They knew their hunters were close. Caleb walked toward Sarai, who stood near the well with two other widows. "Morning," he said, trying to sound steady. Sarai nodded. "Morning, Caleb. We are ready to start." "Good," he said, "because today we prepare for trouble." He motioned for all 11 widows to gather near the old fence. They stood in a half-circle around him, quiet and focused. Caleb took a deep breath and began. "Listen," he said, "the Vorn are close. If they find this ranch, they will not talk. They won't ask questions. They'll just take you and kill anyone who gets in their way." The widows looked down, but none looked surprised. They had lived with fear for months. Caleb continued. "So we need defenses. Nothing loud or obvious. Hidden things. The goal isn't to fight an army. It's to slow them, confuse them by time, and survive." A widow with glowing blue eyes asked softly, "What do we need to do?" Caleb pointed toward the fields. "We'll set traps, pressure lines, noise alarms, and we'll make a few safe places for you to hide if things go bad." Sarai stepped forward. "We will help. Tell us what to do." They began with the alarms. Caleb taught them how to string thin wires between wooden posts. When the wire pulled tight, it rang a small bell hidden inside a tin cup. A simple trick, but it worked. The widows learned quickly. Their slender fingers moved with precision. They tied knots tightly, checked the spacing, and moved the grass like they were used to working outdoors. Next, Caleb showed them how to make trip lines. He tied ropes low to the ground between rocks and bushes. If anyone walked through, they'd fall or stumble. It wouldn't stop a soldier, but it would slow him down. 2 widows, both with pale purple skin, followed him as he tested each line. They watched closely, memorizing the setup. "You learn fast," Caleb said. "We had to," one widow replied sadly. "Running teaches speed and skill." Caleb nodded quietly. He understood. By noon, they moved the barn. The wooden structure was old, but strong. Caleb planned to turn it into a temporary shelter if the fight reached the house. "We'll fortify the walls," he said. "Thicker boards, hidden support beams." One widow with soft red markings stepped forward. "We can help lift heavy wood. Our bones are strong." Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Show me." She walked to a large wooden beam, one Caleb always struggled with, and lifted it with steady hands, as if it weighed nothing. Caleb blinked. "Well, I guess that makes things easier." With her strength and the others' focus, the barn became stronger in just a few hours. They worked like a team that had known each other for years, not days. Caleb felt a strange sense of pride watching them. But the quiet day did not last. While the widows rested under the shade of the barn, Caleb climbed the small hill behind the ranch to check the horizon. He used his old field binoculars, the same pair he kept since his service days. At first, he saw nothing, just dust and grass. Then he saw movement. Far away, near the edge of the valley, 3 black shapes hovered above the trees. Drones. Vorn models. They moved in a slow pattern, scanning the land with red beams. Caleb's heart sank. They were closer than he thought. He climbed down the hill quickly. "Sarai," he called. The widows stood at once when they saw his face. Sarai stepped forward. "What did you see?" "Drones," Caleb said. 3 of them. They're sweeping the valley. They'll reach these fields by tomorrow. A heavy silence fell. One widow whispered, "We hoped they would stop chasing us." Caleb shook his head. "Vorn don't stop. They don't forget. And they don't forgive." "Sarai, clench your fists. Then we trust you. What we do now?" Caleb looked at all 11 widows, facing fear, but not running. They reminded him of soldiers he once fought beside. Brave, determined, stronger than they knew. "We finish the defenses," he said firmly. "We prepare food and water. And tonight, I'll teach you how to shoot." The widows looked at each other with wide eyes, some nervous, some unsure. "We are not warriors," one said carefully. Caleb shook his head. "You don't need to be warriors. You just need to survive. And I'll teach you whatever it takes." Sarai touched his arm gently. "You protect us, Caleb Rourke. We will protect your home." Caleb nodded. "Then let's get to work." And as the sun began to sink, the ranch became something new, a place preparing for war. The first attack. The night came heavy and dark. Clouds covered the moon, and the air felt colder than usual. Caleb checked every corner of the ranch again and again, each fence, each trip line, each alarm. The widows helped quietly, moving with careful steps, trying not to make noise. They all felt it. Something was coming. After hours of preparation, Caleb gathered the widows inside the barn. He placed a wooden crate in front of them, opened it, and revealed the weapons inside. Old rifles, handguns, and a few energy pistols he had kept from past jobs. The widows stared at them with mixed emotion, fear, curiosity, and confusion. Caleb lifted one of the rifles. "All right," he said in a low voice. "You don't have to fight, but if the Vorn reach this barn, you need to defend yourselves." Sarai stepped forward. "Teach us. We will not die without trying." Caleb nodded. "Good. First, how to hold the weapon." They trained for hours in the barn. Caleb taught them how to aim, how to breathe slowly, how to stay hidden, how to use the cover walls and shadows. The widows were beginners, but they learned fast, faster than Caleb expected. One widow with silver freckles hit every target on the practice board. Caleb raised an eyebrow. "You sure you've never fired a gun before?" "My husband was a scout," she said softly. "Sometimes he let me practice with him." Caleb felt a pang of respect. When they finally finished, it was well past midnight. The ranch was silent again, except for the wind brushing over the dry grass. Caleb told him to get some rest, but he stayed awake. Sitting on the porch with his rifle across his lap, he watched the fields carefully. Around 3 a.m, he heard something, a faint hum, very faint. He frowned and stood up, stepping off the porch. The hum grew louder, like an engine hidden behind the wind. Caleb lifted his binoculars and looked toward the slope on the west side of the ranch. Then he saw it, a black transport skimming low over the ground. Not a large one, maybe a scout ship, but Vorn scout ships always carried soldiers. Caleb whispered, "Damn it." He ran to the barn and burst inside. "Get up, now." The widows jumped to their feet instantly. Fear filled their eyes, but they stayed calm. Sarai stepped forward. "Is it the Vorn?" "They're here," Caleb said. "A small ship, a scout team. They'll land near the west fence. We don't have much time." The widows grabbed their weapons. Their hands shook, but they didn't run or hide. Caleb felt pride, sharp and unexpected. He led them outside, whispering instructions. Spread out. Stay low. Use the shadows. Don't fire until they get close. The widows nodded. The scout ship landed softly in the field beyond the west fence. The grass moved in waves as its engines shut down. The door opened, and 3 Vorn soldiers stepped out, tall, armored, and cold. Their helmets glowed with red visors. They carried pulse rifles. They looked dangerous, deadly, hunter-like. Caleb motioned for the widows to stay hidden behind a row of large rocks. He crouched behind an old water trough, aiming his rifle. The Vorn soldiers began scanning the area. One pointed toward the barn. Another pointed toward the house. They were searching fast, moving with practiced steps. Caleb took a deep breath. Then one of the Vorn walked straight into a trip line. The line snapped. The hidden tin cup clanged loudly. The Vorn soldier spun around sharply, but it was too late. Caleb fired. The shot hit the soldier in the shoulder. He staggered back, sparks flying from his armor. The battle began instantly. The Vorn fired pulses of bright light that cut through the dark. The widows ducked, hiding behind rocks and fence posts. Caleb fired again, hitting another soldier's leg. A widow with pale gold skin peeked over cover and shot her pistol. The blast hit a Vorn soldier's chest. The armor absorbed most of it, but the hit distracted him long enough for Caleb to land another shot. The Vorn regrouped and advanced quickly. They fired at the barn, the ground exploding in flashes of red light. A widow screamed as the dirt blasted near her feet, but she was unhurt. Sarai shouted, "Keep your heads down." Another widow, this one with purple skin, fired a steady burst of shots, forcing one soldier to retreat behind a hill. Caleb saw an opening. He moved forward, rolling behind a broken fence. He fired again. One Vorn soldier collapsed. The widows gasped, shocked that they had actually struck back, but there were still 2 more. One soldier charged straight toward the rocks where 3 widows hid. Caleb shouted, "Left! Move left!" The widows scrambled out of the way. The soldier fired, hitting the rock with a loud crack. Dust burst into the air. Then something surprising happened. A widow with dark blue markings stood up, lifted her rifle with both shaking hands, and fired 3 shots in a row, each one hitting the Vorn's armor. The last shot hit the weak point under the helmet. The soldier fell. The widow stared, eyes wide, breath trembling. They had survived. They had fought. They had won. The last Vorn soldier turned and fled toward the scout ship, clearly realizing the mission had failed. Caleb fired once more, hitting the ship's engine. Sparks shot out. The vessel lifted shakily into the air and flew away, leaving a trail of smoke behind it. Silence fell over the ranch. The widows looked at Caleb, exhausted but alive. Some fell to their knees with shaky breaths. Some cried. Some smiled with relief. Sarai walked to Caleb, placing her hand over her heart. "You protected us, and we fought beside you. Thank you." Caleb lowered his rifle slowly. This was only the beginning. The scout will report what happened. The Vorn will send more. The widows exchanged fearful glances, but Sarai lifted her chin. "Then we prepare again. We will not run any more." Caleb nodded. Together, they had survived the first attack. Together, they would face whatever came next. The warning. The sun rose slowly over the ranch, lighting the fields with a soft golden glow. But the beauty of the morning did nothing to calm Caleb's nerves. The widows were exhausted, bruised, and shaken from a night battle, but they still helped each other stand and clean the barn. Caleb walked the perimeter, checking every fence and every alarm again. The air felt different, heavier, like a storm was hiding just beyond the horizon. Sarai followed him quietly, watching his movements. "Will they come back?" she asked. Caleb didn't lie. "Yes. Scout teams don't travel alone. They report back. The Vorn now know you're alive, and they know you're with me." Sarai lowered her head. "We're putting you in danger." "You didn't choose this," Caleb said, "and I don't run from bullies." Sarai looked at him with a warm, grateful expression. He pretended not to notice it. A strange visitor. Later in the morning, the ranch horses grew restless. They kicked their stalls and whinnied nervously. Caleb frowned. Animals could sense danger long before humans. Then he saw dust rising in the distance. Someone or something was approaching the ranch on foot. Caleb grabbed his rifle. The widows armed themselves quickly and took positions behind the rocks and barn walls. Everyone waited in tense silence. A figure appeared over the hill. Tall, thin, wearing a long cloak with silver trim. Not Vorn, not human either. The figure stopped about 30 meters away, lifted both hands slowly, and spoke in a calm voice. "I come in peace." The widows gasped softly. Caleb kept his rifle trained. The stranger removed the hood and revealed pale, glowing lavender skin and eyes like polished silver. Sarai whispered sharply, "A veil walker." The widows exchanged shocked, worried looks. Caleb lowered his rifle slightly. "You know him?" "Not him," Sarai said. "His kind. They keep balance among the stars. They appear when a conflict grows too large." The veil walker bowed. "Correct. And your conflict is no longer small." He approached slowly, then handed Caleb a small metal cube. The device lit up, projecting a hologram of dozens, no, hundreds, of red Vorn markers moving toward the ranch. Caleb's heart dropped. "How many soldiers is that?" "An entire strike division," the veil walker said. "Around 400 warriors. They will arrive in less than 2 days." The widows went pale. Caleb clenched his jaw. "Why warn us?" "Because," the veil walker said, "the Vorn violate the ancient accords. They hunt widows, not criminals. They destroy homes, not armies. This is dishonorable." Sarai stepped forward, trembling. "Can you stop them?" "If I interfere directly," the veil walker said, "the Vorn Empire will declare it an act of war. My people cannot risk that." "So you warn us, then leave?" Caleb said bitterly. The veil walker met his stare evenly. "I cannot fight for you, but I can give you one truth." He pointed at the widows. "They are stronger than they know, and together, your fate will decide more than just your own survival." Then the stranger lifted his cloak and vanished, literally disappeared into the air. The widows stood frozen. Caleb exhaled slowly. "Well, that's new." Preparing for the storm. The ranch turned into a battlefield training ground. Caleb drilled the widows from morning till evening. Target practice, movement drills, use of cover, communication signals. Sweat soaked their clothes. Their arms ached. Their hands shook with exhaustion. But they improved. Fast. One widow learned to reload quicker than Caleb. Another shot targets at twice the distance. Another could climb the barn roof with surprising balance. Sarai watched them proudly. "We were always told we were weak," she said softly. "But maybe we were never given a chance." "You're not weak," Caleb said. "You just needed someone to fight for." Sarai looked at him for a moment too long, then looked away quickly. The conversation in the barn. That evening, after everyone rested, Sarai found Caleb repairing a broken fence post. "You worry," she said. Caleb didn't deny it. "For 100 Vorn soldiers against me and 11 widows? Odds aren't exactly friendly." Sarai touched his arm lightly. "Why stay? Why not run? You could leave us. Save yourself." Caleb looked at her with steady eyes. "Because I've run enough in my life. And I don't leave people behind." Her throat tightened. "You will die for us?" "I'll try to live for you," Caleb said softly. "But if dying is the only way to stop them, I'll do it." Sarai blinked quickly, fighting tears. "We won't let that happen." A moment of silence stretched between them, deep and warm. Then a loud bang echoed outside, breaking the moment. A widow ran in, breathless. "Caleb, Sarai, you need to see this." The sky turns red. They rushed out of the barn. On the horizon, far beyond the hills, dozens of glowing red streaks raced across the sky. Dropships. Fast ones. Coming in formation. Caleb felt the blood drain from his face. "They're early." Sarai grabbed his hand. "They're coming for us." Caleb lifted his rifle and shouted the widows, "Positions! Now, this is it." The widows ran, taking their places behind rocks, fences, barrels, and rooftops. The ranch buzzed with tense energy. Caleb took a deep breath. "Hold the line," he whispered. No matter what. The first Vorn dropship roared across the sky, shaking the earth below. The battle for the ranch had begun. New life, new home. The sky above Caleb's ranch glowed red and orange as the Vorn dropships descended. Hundreds of soldiers poured out, armed with pulse rifles and energy blades. The air shook from the engines, and dust and debris swirled across the fields. Caleb felt a familiar tightness in his chest. Fear, adrenaline, and determination all mixed together. Positions, Caleb shouted. The widows moved quickly, each taking their place behind rocks, fences, and barn walls. Their rifles and pistols were ready. Caleb checked every corner, every hiding spot, every alarm. Their plan was simple: defend the ranch, survive, and protect the 11 widows at all costs. The first Vorn soldiers ran across the open field. Caleb fired, hitting one in the leg, sending him tumbling into the dirt. The widows followed his lead, shooting carefully, moving with stealth and precision. Each shot counted. Every hit slowed the Vorn's advance. Sarai crouched behind a broken fence post, her silver eyes focused. She fired at a soldier climbing the barn roof, making him fall backward. Another widow with pale gold skin rolled behind a haystack, her hand steady as she took down 2 more soldiers. Caleb watched, his pride hidden under the stress. These women, once frightened and alone, were now fighters. Strong, determined, alive. The Vorn regrouped quickly. They were organized, ruthless, and fast. One group tried to flank the barn, while another pushed toward the house. Caleb shouted instructions, moving between positions like a general. Watch the west flank. Keep low. Don't stop firing. But then a Vorn soldier broke through near the barn's edge. He aimed directly at 2 widows. Caleb ran forward without thinking, leaping in front of the bullets. A searing pain shot through his shoulder as a pulse hit him. He fell to the ground, but dragged the widows behind him. Caleb! Sarai shouted, running to his side. I'm fine, he gritted out, though blood soaked his shirt. Keep fighting. The widows hesitated for only a moment, then pressed on with renewed fury. Their fear had turned into something sharper: anger, courage, and survival. They shot with precision, setting traps along the way, and even managed to disable one of the dropships by shooting at its engine. Sparks flew, and the Vorn soldiers faltered in surprise. The battle raged across the ranch. Dust filled the air. The screams of the Vorn mixed with shouts from Caleb and the widows. Caleb, despite his wound, moved tirelessly, helping a widow climb to a better firing position, then another. Together, they formed a human-alien wall that refused to break. Hours passed. The sun began to rise, casting long shadows over the field. The Vorn soldiers, exhausted and beaten, started to retreat. Caleb and the widows pursued them just enough to ensure they would not return quickly. Finally, the last of the dropships lifted off, trailing smoke into the sky. The ranch was quiet again, except for the labored breaths of its defenders. Caleb sank onto the porch steps, holding his shoulder, and Sarai knelt beside him. You saved us again, she said softly. We saved each other, he replied. He looked at the 11 widows, tired, bruised, but alive. A strange warmth filled him. After so many years alone, this was more than victory. It was family. The widows gathered near Caleb and Sarai. We should stay together, Sarai said, her voice calm but firm. This ranch, your home, it is now ours too. We will help rebuild, protect, and live here. Caleb smiled despite the pain. Then let's make a proper home. Safe, strong, and never lonely again. Weeks passed. The widows repaired the barn, fixed fences, planted gardens, and tended the animals. Caleb taught them more about human life, and they taught him about their culture, their stories, and their strength. The ranch, once quiet and empty, became full of life, laughter, and hope. Neighbors from distant towns began to notice smoke from chimneys and lights at night. Curious but cautious, they visited the ranch and were welcomed warmly by Caleb and the widows. The story of a human and 11 alien widows spread quietly. People whispered about the courage, unity, and trust shared across worlds. Caleb walked through the fields one evening with Sarai beside him. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in pink and gold. Do you think the Vor will come back? He asked. Sarai shook her head. They may try, but they know now that this place is different. Here, humans and Serene stand together. We are stronger than they imagine. Caleb nodded, feeling the truth in her words. For the first time in decades, he did not feel alone. He had found purpose, family, and friendship across the stars and on his own land. And as the night settled over the ranch, the stars above seemed brighter than ever. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the promise of new life, a life built on courage, unity, and hope. A human and 11 alien widows. One ranch, a new home, a new family. Together, they would face whatever came next, searching, something coming.